to the Face Downs, your source for TCG news and all things Yu-Gi-Oh! I'm your host, Lucas.
I'm Ruben.
And I'm Joe.
And welcome back, everyone. Another week, another one done and dusted. How are we feeling?
Oh, pretty drained, actually. It was a really big day yesterday.
Yeah, I feel like we had pretty busy weekends here. So Saturdays was a busy one for all of us.
Now today, I think Ruben just spent the entire time trying to hunt as a Feebas.
Yes,
in Pokemon.
I'm currently tile hunting for Feebas in Brilliant Diamond. There's 4 tiles in the particular lake, and I'm yet to find one of them. So, joy to me.
Pokemon Diamond and Pearl came out and has just taken away everyone's lives for a short time.
Yeah.
It always happens with Pokemon games, but yeah.
You ever play Pokemon, Joe?
Like back in the day, you know, bit of Pokemon Yellow on the old Game Boy.
Oh wow, yeah, that is back in the day.
Yeah.
This is why I call you Old Man Joe.
Yeah, I know. I'm sure my age. But no, I played a bit of like Sun and Moon when they came out as well.
That was good. I like the 3DS.
Yeah. Anyway, back to the Yu-Gi-Oh side of things.
What were we doing yesterday that made us so busy?
Well,
we were commentating, and Joe was hosting.
Yeah, so we had the OTS Championship in Palmerston North for Valkyrie Games.
Yes.
We dropped a few numbers just because of the COVID case that popped up in Palmy.
Boo.
So we had 32 players registered for it. In the end, it dropped down to 24. So like it was still like I was still really happy with the turnout, and everyone still had a really good day. And yeah, we had for Palmy. It was less diverse than normal. There was actually numerous of a single deck, like which hasn't happened before in Palmy for a long time.
I know, yeah. Tournament breakdown was like 20 one-offs, I remember.
Yeah. So we had 4 Flunderies. So that was the most represented deck, and I think we had a couple like Shadow variants and invoked stuff and this and that. But it was a good day. We saw Sword Soul come out top after Swiss, and that was with Shane Boredom using the 10 Sword Soul. He like wiped the floor all day, like just 2-0'd everyone pretty much, like most of the way through. Had some pretty cool spicy text.
So I don't
I mean it was.
We've got all the lists with us actually, thanks to your move TCG. We'll give credit. And we figured we would sorry.
So shady. That is shady.
No one knows who I'm talking about.
No, not a single person knows who doesn't give credit.
We have the lists, so we figured starting with Valkyrie Games, which is your homestead, we could have a look at what topped and talk about how it reflects on what we thought was good. There's definitely some surprises among these lists, and not entirely because of the South Island chaos format. There was like good decks we commentated over.
Yeah. No, I mean obviously. Oh no, sorry.
You were there.
Yeah. So obviously we didn't see a large representation of like the higher end decks like Sword Soul. There was only one at the tournament out of the 24. And there was 2 Phantom Knight decks as well. So like one of them had a pretty bad day. I think he had a few bricks and stuff. The other one was on the bubble. Phantom Knight still had a pretty good showing. But yeah, Sword Soul, I mean, the fact that there was one in the tournament, I mean, admittedly, it was piloted by a good player. It showed the power of the deck that it just like stomped everything all day until it got to the final. I watched the final.
It's also like $1,000 deck.
It is very expensive, yeah.
Not surprised there weren't that many people who jumped out of bed to pick up their $300 Barons, their $300 Ecclesia playset, all that.
Yeah, no, for sure. So what I'll go through is in 6th place we had Alistair Parks, who was playing like a Phantom Knight build that was pretty standard. He was running the I believe the Dragoon package instead of the DPE. He does have both, but like he went with Dragoon because he was just more comfortable with it. And then in 5th place we had Ryan Val with Pendulum Magicians, which we actually saw do pretty well in Dunedin as well, I believe. So
yeah, we saw it top 2 in Dunedin.
It got to the finals. So we can talk about that one when we head to the South Island.
And I run through the list of lists and talk about them as they come up, and you can share any stories.
Oh, for sure, yeah. So the one cool tech I'll say about the Pendulum one is it was quite an old school one. He would summon what's the name of that card? I'll come back to that one. Moving to the top 4.
So in 4th place, we had...
top 4.
Top 4.
Yeah.
So 3rd, 4th. We had a G-Man. This is a Wellington player. Very notable, has had a lot of competitive success throughout Yu-Gi-Oh! History.
Yeah, we met G-Man. He was on Dino's team a few.
Yeah, he was on Dino's team
ago.
at I believe the second 3v3.
Yeah.
He was top 8 at the Your Move, I think TCG event, not the Geek Culture Championships in 2019 when we went. He was on top 8 in Thunder Dragons. And he's had a relative competitive success. I believe, unfortunately, did not do too well in the South Island Championships, but
did well here.
Okay, did well here. So top 4 on Invoked Mech Knights. Now, I guess this is kind of a tribute to the power of Go Second. This is something that we've kind of discussed previously.
It's funny that we had the question last week about like, what do you think about going second decks? And we're like, oh, they're pretty good. And then, yeah, this is exactly what I envisioned. Yeah. Joe, what was this? How was this in Swiss? Did people just scoop it up to Lightning Storm, or was this a grindy deck? How did it turn out?
I saw a few of his games. So I saw the one that he was on the bubble where he was playing against Philip with Fluanderies. Phil didn't open a bird, and that was just enough in game 2 to like just take it out, go in second. We've seen Mech Knight just be super explosive in the past. It can just OTK out of nowhere. And it punishes your opponent if they brick. So like, yeah, it's a strong deck in this format. I was quite happy to see it. It had a pretty cool tech with the Rainbow Neos in there, rather than like a Dragoon or a DPE, I suppose. Like it was a bit different. It was kind of cool. I think it was a bit spicy by G-Man, but it obviously worked for him.
Neos Fusion has the benefit of being like Fusion Destiny. You can do other things before it. So I can see why you wouldn't opt for Red Eyes Fusion in a deck that wants to be specialing other big bunguses to the field. Interesting, he's on 2 Purple Nightfall, considering I think that's maybe the best Mech Knight.
I mean, this is barely Mech Knights, even if you look at it. It's 3-2-1.
He's on no Gearsu. I don't think he's on none of the extra deck like Link 2s or anything like that. So this is a lot more like I just want 7 copies of Pankratops, right?
Yeah, using the Mech Knights to generate obviously large bodies in tandem with them being link material for things like Verte.
I mean, he's got everything in here. He's got Invoked, he's got a Shadol package, Neos Fusion. There's just a Mystic Mine, because why not?
Yeah.
No, I mean, I think it was very much like I'm going to go second, I'm just going to break your board and attack the game. Yeah. And like, often he would be finished first out of everyone. Like, you know, it'll be like
either win or lose really fast.
5-10 minutes into the round, he was done. You know, like it was one of those sorts of decks. But like we saw it was effective, and it definitely can break boards. I think it has a relatively good Fluanderies matchup as well.
Well, it's tough to counter. It's really tough to like just actually build a board when you know your opponent's gonna super poly it away, Lightning Storm, or just throw down a Shadol Fusion. I mean, all of those are incredibly strong, disruptive things to do.
Yeah, no, it was a pretty effective deck all day. So
I think the most notable thing here I'm seeing in terms of a list is seeing the use of Invoked Elysium.
Oh my god.
Well, it's quite fascinating.
It's like a super poly target for Alistair, I guess.
Yeah,
no, it's you have to use an invoked monster and a monster special summon from the extra deck.
Yeah, but I mean, normally it's impossible to use because you can't banish from grave. To summon Elysium, you have to use a monster on the field. Otherwise, it wasn't summoned from the extra deck.
I did see him. I saw him go into it once, and I believe the field at the time was the Rainbow Neos and the Elysium on board, and it was just enough for game. But like, it was pretty funny.
That's big.
Yeah, so it was cool to see. But and I guess it's kind of nice seeing these little like different techs. It's not just your normal like, look, he's playing DPE and Mech Knight, you know, you know. So yeah, it was good to see. But we'll move on to
a lot of new in this, like no new
I mean,
or anything like that.
We've kind of seen it. Yeah, this deck though.
It's got some new cards in it.
This is quite funky, fun, and fresh. So this is your top 4. So who was piloting this one actually? Because you would have seen this.
This is Jeffy Forrest. So he won GP Champs, I believe, in 2012 or 2013. So he's like a known player in Palmerston North.
And what deck was he on?
He was
for the audio listeners.
For the GP. For yesterday, he was on Trap.
Trap.
So
cool.
With a Dogmatica engine and Lord of the Sky Prison. So it was pretty effective, to be honest. Like, obviously, it hinged a lot on going first, and that was what his downfall was, I think, in the top 4. He just didn't get the dice roll, and the Sword Soul board got set up, and he couldn't break it. So
yeah, I'm looking at the list, and it has a lot of going first.
A lot of go first.
He hasn't opted to main deck a lot of cards that people put in trap decks, like evenly matched. Isn't maining infinite impermanence, you know, a lot of, again, like things that would help going second, and has instead opted for a couple of interesting spicy techs. I am noticing a Temple of the Kings.
Yes. Yeah.
Did he explain this? Did this come up? What is this card for?
So I'm not sure, but like Jeff has always like had this thing where he like just grabs random cards that are like kind of cool text, and he thinks of these random combos that he can do with them.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't explain it to you, but like I'm sure he'll be able to. But like I think it's around like, I don't know, maybe he used it for Dogmatic Punishment going like second. I'm not sure.
There's
but like
13 traps in this deck also.
Yeah.
Like for trap tricks, that's
a low population.
Normally you run about 20.
So like often I saw him setting up like I saw an Abyss Dweller on his field quite a lot throughout the day with the Rolo XZ. The Lord of the Sky Prison was pretty clutch most of the day. Interestingly, I thought his Solemn Brigade was a bit low. Only one Solemn Strike, one Solemn
Judgment. There is
Yep.
no brigade.
One strike, one judgment. It's like
Yeah.
limited. Wow.
Yeah, so it was an interesting build, and he just makes it work. And I think it's not.
Yeah, I can't knock it.
Yeah, like
whatever it was, it worked.
He's definitely one of those players where he may not be playing the most optimal deck, but like he makes it work. And it's really cool when like you see like a player like just he always plays his traps at the perfect time, and that's something he's always done. He's always played trap decks. Like he famously won that GP champs in the Dragon Ruler format using the Evil Swarm. So like he's always used trap decks, and like he knows how to time traps to like disrupt combos. And interestingly enough, he didn't even know what Sword Soul and Flunderies were before he showed up on the day.
I mean,
incredible.
Very much the telling tale of a player who's been out of the game for quite a while, and like these kind of, the breadth of events returning can quite often draw a lot of people out of the woodwork.
100%.
There's something to be said for someone who just goes completely off the grain. Not that it's always like your pet idea is going to be the best deck. Obviously, that can backfire, but sometimes playing a deck that isn't playing cards other people are playing can help, because people tech their decks really specifically for like, well, everyone's going to be playing Imperial Order, everyone's going to be playing Solemn Strike, Dimensional Prison. If you play none of those cards and instead of like Trap Chicks, Trap Hole Nightmare, people aren't going to expect it. Cards like Lost Wind especially
he said he really liked Lost Wind on the day as well. He said that was the card that like kind of performed the best for him throughout the day.
Completely useless against Flunderies, just hilarious. But
but like
I'm sure it didn't matter.
No, well, I mean, I think he played one Flunderies and he just got lucky because the opponent breaked, and
and this is kind of where trap tricks thrive, is their innate engine, the advantage generation off Serra, the introduction of things like Versiculo and trap tricks Kularia, like a really good link to an incredible level 4 extender. You've got so much utility now out of that support from Lightning Overdrive. And I mean, as we've discussed, traps have only gotten better. And then the introduction of Lord of the Heavenly Prison to protect that from, obviously, we saw in G-Man's list, there was a lot of back row hatred. There was Twins, there was Lightning Storms. I'm safe to say that was probably quite common across the day.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, so I feel like this, that's an interesting addition, and honestly giving trap tricks, quite a bit of a body, because something I've really found is that they struggle to, you see the introduction of like things like Burrow Sword, their Pentastag, they're just not quite equipped to kind of go into those larger materials.
They've generally had to make Utopia the Lightning or Utopia Double to clear big monsters. Now, if I'm not mistaken, Heavenly Prison doesn't have a lot of attack points, but it's a big butt.
It's a big defense that can also, I mean, we can see here there's a Boral Sword, and that's
extra material.
Yeah, that's pretty useful. Just that one extra monster can do so much.
I mean, it's effective because if your opponent has boarded into Storms and Harpies, it almost kind of hand loops them, right? Because
absolutely,
those cards are just cards that do nothing.
Heavenly is 3k, by the way.
Oh, well, take it back. That guy's huge.
Yep. He's a big boy.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
People should really be keeping an eye on Heavenly Prison.
Yes, 100%.
This card legitimately does just sometimes say hand loop your opponent for 2 if they just drew back or removal that isn't Cosmic Cyclone.
And deal 3,000 damage.
I think it's why everyone's just opting for evenly matched now over things like Lightning Storm.
Another thing you'll see lots of trap players do with it as well is they'll set up their trap board, they'll reveal it every turn, and they'll only summon it when they're ready for the kill. And then they'll go in for the kill. And it's insane that it sets any spell or trap as well.
That's Pot of Greed, whatever.
Yeah, it's so cool. So no, I was happy to see that that card at BODE. I kind of showed Jeffy it before the tournament a few weeks ago, and he was like, "Oh, that's a damn good card. I can definitely get the best use out of that," and he definitely did.
And pay attention to those people, because when veteran players and successful players say that's a good card, there's a lot of merit behind those statements because they've seen it. They've seen a lot.
When the new Nordic support got announced, I think Jeff Jones was like, "This is good," and everyone's like, "Oh,
oh boy, this is good."
A real, if he's saying it's good, maybe it's actually playable.
Yeah. All right. So moving on to,
we'll go to second place. So second place was Shane on that 10-year Sword Soul.
So he was playing pretty standard overall. I thought like the main board anyway. Like he definitely
cards.
Seeing the Shomkul 2-ofs, a lot of 2-ofs, 2 tactics, 2 desires, 2 droplets, 2 chalice, 2 blackout, 2 Veiler.
A lot of these are standard ratios.
Yeah, interestingly though, triple imperm. So like he obviously saw that as the main card to do. But no, I mean, it worked for him throughout the day. I've seen a lot of 10-year Sword Soul builds online over in the States with bigger tournaments. They're starting to opt for more of the triple of all the 10 years. I don't know if you guys have seen that as well. And like the hand traps have been dropped a little bit.
Yeah, personally, my build is 3 Tire, and I don't run any interaction like go for like hand trap wise. I just think that the deck has a lot of strength. And obviously, this is quite evident. The deck has a lot of strength in going second. The shooter is an incredible out. You you main things like droplets and triple tactics. Like, there's so much that you can use as hatred that it's almost, like it can be a bit like a toss up whether or not like the hand traps are as effective as they would be.
I think you have to go all in one way or the other. This deck is definitely all in on just going second. I mean, you see the maxed out. Well, not maxed out, but you're seeing Forbidden Droplets, Forbidden Chalice, Imperm, Tactics, and then Vishuda all exemplify going second, and then you've got Veiler Imperm for going first.
Yeah.
I'd almost argue that the Veiler Imperm are the weakest
I would agree,
inclusions here, just because cards like Droplets do so much more.
Yeah,
but I can see because of the existence of Fluanda, they are kind of really the only things that hit it in more ways than Ash.
Fluanda is not hurt by a Dark Ruler, for example.
No.
And I think we're seeing as well, Ash Blossom is probably the weakest hand trap in the format right now, out of the main core, like, I suppose, 4 hand
there's
traps,
too much chain blocking going on.
There's so
Ash
many
Blossom is one of those cards you have to chain directly to an effect, whereas
it's a win you can. It's a win.
It's a triggered effect in response to the last thing to happen in a chain link. So if your opponent's able to put something at chain link 1, it's useless if you want to hit that. Fluanda can chain that way. Sword Soul obviously can chain that way. And that's, I guess, where Imperm and Veiler, being an open chain, anytime hand trap is relevant. Anything else interesting about this list? The main IO is pretty hateful.
Yeah, the extra deck, there was a white whale. That was
a whale.
That was about the only like kind of different tech, I suppose. Like he is choosing the 2 backs here, which we're seeing a bit more with the 10-year package now. I think that's kind of standard. I've seen a few people drop Ruddy Rose, but like it is like good in certain matchups. A lot of people don't summon it though because other cards are just better to summon.
I mean, to be honest, the Sword Soul extra deck is very fluid. Like, there's probably about like 7 cards that are just like mainstays, and the other 8 are very flexible. Like,
because I can see they're not on Yazi, which is sometimes teched. They're not on anything like Scarlet Red Dragon Archfiend. They're not on. They are on Draco Berserker.
You do have the Draco Berserker.
It's a fairly standard extra deck. I think you just have like 3 or 4 tech slots that can be whatever. Like you're never summoning them.
It's very versatile. Yeah.
Yeah. I'll say one other thing would be, he said the top performing card of the day for him was Chalice, and also the Protoss.
Chalice is crazy right now.
Protoss is incredibly hateful. It is.
I'm even seeing that
FTK's PK.
Yep. I'm seeing that a lot more in people's main decks as well now.
It's almost kind of valid. I mean, it's a bit more like metagamey. Like if you know what you're going to go against, then Protoss is stronger. I feel like New Zealand meta is almost just a touch too diverse to main deck.
Yeah, if you go up against back row decks or Fluanda, it's completely useless. But even Eldritch needs to summon Eldritch. So, there's an argument that it matters.
Also, it only stops special summons as well. So just hoses Fluanda.
That's what I'm saying. It is good against Fluanda because it isn't good against Fluanda because it's only special summons. And then in first place, speaking of the devil, Fluanda Ease.
Yeah.
Shocking, actually. I did not expect this.
I did. I mean, I expected this to do quite well. I think this main deck lineup is very powerful. And I think, this is a really strong deck. What were your impressions of the deck as it performed?
I mean, The one difference it was that I saw anyway, there was 2 decks that were choosing the Prosperity over the Extravagance, and the other 2 decks were running Extravagance. We saw one obviously win the event. The other one was in 8th place, one was in 10th, and the other one kind of didn't do too well on the day. It was a bit lower down. But like in this build, I think this was the one that was main in Crossout. Like I don't think the other ones were, which was quite interesting. I think it helped him throughout the day because like there was other Flawonderies in the room, so like it's insanely good having that in your main deck for the mirror match.
That's true.
Absolutely.
And also I did like his choice of like, I like the one-off hand traps is like an interesting thing to do because like it is a slight risk because if you draw it, obviously your crossouts are more dead, and I'm like seeing often people doing like the lots of 2 for Crossout Designator rather than the ones, just for that like that reason alone.
I mean, that's what exemplifies to me how difficult it is building around Crossout. You can see this deck is 42 cards, and Flawonder, as you said, had issues with bricking. So it's never nice to see having to add more than 40 cards in a deck that really needs to draw, exactly Robina or Map.
Yeah. Interestingly, as well, he did only have the 3 big boss monsters, which we're seeing a little bit more with Flawonderies now.
Yeah,
I don't think it's completely wrong, but like I think 3 or 4 is kind of the number.
Well, again, with 42 cards, you've already made a lot of exemptions adding these one-off hand traps. So you don't really have the room to add in, say, a Snowl or a second Empen, things people are teching in, because you've already jammed your deck full of targets for Crossout, because you want at least 3 targets for Crossout to be good. I'm interested that he mained 3 Ash as well. I figured Ash is fairly weak versus Flawonderies, so I would have figured you'd want to main the 3 Imperm just to have better chances of not being Impermed on your opener.
I mean, I can't speak for him for like his reasoning for what it is, but what I would assume is he made a bit of a metagame call, because last time he came to Palmy, obviously it was super diverse and super roguey, so like he needed like an Ash for like it definitely does, and it's still a powerful hand trap against those rogue decks. And I would say that would be the same reasoning behind the double Cosmic Cyclone and the Harpy's Feather Duster as well. They're good cards, but like like he probably just put them in as kind of a choice because he knows that Palmy has quite a few back row and rogue decks. So
it serves an interesting purpose because Cosmic is what I would like to put in versus Flawonder, because it banishes their trap, so it's gone. It can only activate during the main phase, so it's like a standby phase. Oh, I'll just get rid of your...
Very similar to like PK.
Yeah, or even Tri-Brigade, like baiting out their card can be good, so Harpies effectively fades their ability to play during your turn.
Yeah, if you make them do everything early.
The most you're going to have to play through then is an Apex Avian, which is not a big deal for some decks. But D-Shifter is insane. Everyone should just be maining this in Flawonder. It's not even close. It's by far the best card in the deck.
Every single list main the D-Shifter like on the day.
And I mean, it helps you play. Like sometimes you need to get a card into banished to turn on token. This card can do that for you. Like it actually assists you. It's insane.
It is one of those cards where like if you get D-shifted turn 1 and you're playing like a deck that just cannot deal with losing your graveyard, like you just lose the game. Like I
can't play. You literally can't activate their effects under Dimension Shifter.
Yeah,
that's so much. PK just turns off.
Sword Soul, like you can play a little bit, but you lose your follow-up play. You don't have a graveyard for your Xi Zhao effect. So like,
and you can, because they can't use Moye, you can Ash the Xi Zhao, which is a hilarious interaction with this specific 2
kind of line traps. Yeah.
All right, so that was your event. It went well, you think?
Oh yeah, and I have to commend everyone as well for following the COVID protocols that we had in place. Like we had some pretty strict rules, and like I have to just say well done to everyone who came along for following them. We had everyone doing the right thing, and it was great. Yeah.
This is the first of many events to come. Fingers crossed.
Oh yeah, we're like
this is a great example.
We're like 2 weeks away in Auckland from no one do anything. No one mess this up because I really need to play a local so bad. All right, so we'll move on. We'll briefly talk about Bay Dragon. Neither of us commentated or were there.
So we're just kind of feeding off secondhand information.
Yeah, but we have Dino here, friend of the pod, on Despia, which I'm sure you'll want to talk about. We had Ross on Phantom Knight actually topping here, unlike in your event. Then we had first place Aaron on Tenyi Sword Soul, and then second was Striker, which they didn't put their list up here. So
yeah, I mean no diversity, so that's fine. I'm not exactly
Striker will be Striker.
Striker.
If they're playing DPE, we've all seen it.
Yeah.
Despia, this is a wild build, and this is nothing like what he was testing when we played a week ago.
And I think that's because you have to diversify yourself, because we've discussed this in person, maybe potentially on here as well. This deck very much struggles against Fluanda.
Yeah,
this is one of the hardest matchups for Despia.
We tested Fluanda versus his previous Despia build. It went like 0-10. It was like not possible for his deck because of the way Despia requires your opponent to control an extra deck monster for a lot of their beneficial effects. It just struggled. You know, like you can't bring back your Masquerade Dragons. You can't utilize Dramaturge in the way that you would like. I guess you can summon your own monsters to trigger Dramaturge, but even then, you're just losing out on what should be your opponent giving you value. But you can see here this deck was playing Diviner as its normal, aside Alaba. It had an Eva and a Trias Hierarchia, which I think we're going to start seeing a bit more as a kind of discrete normal summon engine, because it effectively gives you a free search for Orange Light and a follow-up Diviner and a light on field. Seems good.
Also,
this is really interesting.
Tragedy, because it's a level 2 light fairy, is that correct?
It's a dark fairy. Yeah, I can't search it, but it can search Orange Light and another Diviner, which is pretty strong.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly what Drytron do, so.
Also in here, seeing 2 Protecting Spirit lower Geth, which is interesting.
Fairy effects. We see the main deck Nibiru, we see the main deck Impermanence. I feel like those are pretty good main decks.
Joe, what do you think about it? Because this list, I mean, this deck has evolved a lot.
Yeah.
And no one really knows how to play it yet.
It's definitely one of those decks where no one yet has found the perfect build. Like, there's no cookie cutter build for it. Like, we see these, like, 10-year decks and Phantom Knight decks and all that. And no offense to the players, but, like, they are very linear. They are, like, that is the deck you play.
They're solved.
You can waver off of it a little bit and, like, do a couple of cards. They are solved, yeah. Despia is just not. Like, this is a really, like, cool deck by Dino. I think it's super creative. Like, I haven't seen the Diviner package with Eva and the Orange Lights before. I didn't even think of it myself. Like, being a fairy, like, I was just like, that's a Drytron card. I can't use that. Like, I just wrote it off. Like, and I've been trying to make it work with Shadows for a while. I feel like the Shadows are just too weak this format against Fluandaries and stuff.
Yeah.
So I think Diviner, when the agent support comes out, will start to stop thinking about it as a Drytron card, because it is insane. In that specific deck, it's crazy.
Yeah. Interesting to see the Albaz in there as well. Like, that's a pretty cool.
He's hot on Albaz. I mean, it's a removal spell. It's pretty searchable and recurable in the deck as well. There's a few cards that nicely interact with it. He's no longer on, when we were testing, he was on like the Dogmatica package. I can see he's kind of moved away into just like playing Diviner, because I think realistically too many decks aren't so concerned about either getting a Fleur-de-Lis or a Dogmatica punishment.
Yeah.
And he was Maximusing, and I mean, I was on Fluandaries, and that only happened one time, I'll tell you that much, because I main like just a couple of Maximus targets, because why not? You know, the extra deck.
Your 15 cards do not matter.
Unless you're playing Ghost Reaper and Winter Cherries, which I think
we will see coming up.
One of the lists was on. You want to just jam your extra deck full of things that might come up, right?
Yeah, so one thing I will say about the Dogmatic package in this deck, that's the one I've been testing. I definitely think it conflicts way too much with Albaz, and that's the problem.
Absolutely,
like, I wish they just put on the Dear Servant, you can fusion summon an Albaz fusion, but like obviously that would just be really broken. But like it's just
monsters that require Albaz's material.
Yeah, something like that, because it just feels so disjointed. It feels like an old like 2012 card when you play it and search your Albaz, because you're like, okay, cool, I've got my play for next turn ready, you know, and you just need it then and there.
I guess the idea is that you like set up the Albaz so that you can summon it during your opponent's turn and bypass the restriction that way.
Yeah, I think so.
Like how?
Yeah,
like how? I don't know how you do that yet. Maybe the deck will give us more ways to do that when the structure deck comes out.
No, I think it's really good though. Like, and Ecclesia as well was a card that you could possibly tech in to like special your Albaz out, but like I don't know if it really.
Yeah, the Virtuous.
Yeah, the Virtuous one. Yeah, but I don't think it does enough at the moment.
Not yet.
Realistically, I think Dino looked at this deck and just thought, it's got a really good game plan. All of its monsters float, and Masquerade is a bastard to actually deal with. Yeah. I'm just going to put a bunch of good cards in it, and we'll run with that. Dino, you know, I know he loves cards that just have high impact.
This is a pretty high impact deck.
So cards like Solemn Strike, when is that ever going to be bad? It seems good.
Yeah.
All right, we had Ross on Phantom Knights.
No Loss Ross.
Yeah.
At a top 4 with a 45 card PK. I mean, there's honestly not much to talk about.
There's nothing I'd take out.
This is the gig. This is exactly how the deck works. I think the inclusion of Junk Forward is potentially the only newest, tech that's being seen. Obviously, Ross opting to use Dragoon as opposed to the Destroyer Phoenix Enforcer. But I think that this deck is, just like you said, kind of solved. And it's, mainly all the things that change in the deck is, I think, the hand trap lineup. When I versed him, it was a bit more like Ash Bell. We see here it's Droll Nibiru, which is very powerful right now.
It seems like the hand traps everyone likes is Droll Nibiru right now.
Yeah, I like, and it's not nothing against like Ross or anything. It's just it's just that the Phantom Knight thing is solved. It's done. Like he knows the best build. Like a lot of people have seen the best build. Like we
just play the best deck.
Yeah, there's no point in deviating.
I'd love to give some notable shout outs. 1 Forbidden Chalice in the side.
Just draw it.
Really funny. In 45 cards. What else? Called by in the side, always a good sign. I mean, I don't know. Like, I'm not going to critique him. This deck is like very good at doing the thing, and whatever else you play is kind of up to you, right? Like,
he's off the levy loops.
No levy loops. I mean, so a lot of people actually cut
we're
that.
Off Utopic Draco Future here in option for what I assume is the it's the peak, is the fog, as the break sword triggers to create your Evil Swarm Nightmare at the very end of your combo.
Yeah, that's pretty sick.
That's cool.
Evil Swarm Nightmare, so powerful. So many decks special summon. Obviously, unfortunately, you can't book tokens. But
It'd be nice.
It's really powerful, and I think that's probably the most unique thing I've seen going
We're
forward.
in adventure token waiting room now.
We are in adventure token. Yeah.
All right. So taking the event was Sword Soul, surprise, or Soul Sword, as Keza likes to call it.
Yeah.
Soul Sword. Oh, that's good.
So this was Aaron Dennis, 42 cards. Seeing a lot of over 40. Don't know how I feel about that. It's an interesting.
I think you can condense it down into 40. I
really do too.
Yeah.
However,
what do you cut? I mean, it would be the tactics, but that's tough because that card is pretty clutch.
Yeah. So we're seeing obviously a pretty standard Sword Soul lineup. Obviously opting for 2 Taya instead of 3. 3/2/2 on the 10-year monsters of use. And then obviously the main deck interaction being Chalice, Droplets, and Imperm. I feel like you're right.
And tactics.
Oh, and tactics, obviously. I feel like you're right, Joe. It's like Chalice is really coming up.
Yeah, it is. Format. I think it's definitely like just additional card like that you can use. I know that like it just outs the Scythe problem for the deck, which is like something that it would struggle with normally, and it's not too much of a cost. Like I know Droplets is an insane card, but it does come with a cost. It's just that nice 1-for-1 deal with the problem then and there. You can like just activate it on the Baron to like force it out. Like it has its application. It works. It deals with everything. What I think we're seeing is it's like kind of replaced, because when we first saw the Sword Soul deck come out, we saw a lot of people running Dark Ruler No More in the main deck. And what I've seen now is that's gone back into the side, and Chalice has kind of replaced that card because they still want to kill on that turn, and I think that's what kind of does it.
What that says to me is that people are really just worried about maybe 1 or 2 monsters on the field, and I think that's a reasonable fear with DPE running around with Baron. Like often people are just ending on 2, maybe 3 monsters of interest, and your hand can often deal with maybe 1 of them natively, maybe 2 of them with just like 10-year cards plus some Sword Soul effects. So I'm not surprised people are on Chalice, because if people are just ending on 2 or 3 monsters, it does a really good job at dealing with it. It also beats Winder, which this deck struggles at dealing with.
Yep. Beats Token Collector. Obviously, it's reactive.
So I think it has a lot of place, over Imperm, in my opinion, in this deck. I mean, Imperm's still really good, but it just feels like a better version of Imperm for a deck like this that can so easily break boards and then just hit for lethal.
So easily.
Yeah.
I think extra deck pretty cut and dry.
Yeah,
we
similar.
See the inclusion of Omega. That's probably the most unique here.
Yeah.
A lot of people opting to not play Omega.
The Protoss in the side, similar kind of sideboard. I mean, this deck is already.
I kid you not, this is like 14 out of my 15 sided cards in my build as well.
The fact of the matter with this deck is that they printed 12 really good cards for it, and you don't have to play anything else. They're never going to print more broken main deck monsters, I imagine. So you can just kind of like take the 12, you'll draw some of them, you'll be able to do the combo. Your opponent has to have outs to that combo. that's it. Simple as that.
One thing I have seen with Tenyi Sword Soul in America with like these bigger like sort of 150, 300 player events is the vessel of the Tenyi and all the Tenyis are now being maxed out at like 3 over there, and I think it's just because the Chow Feng play it before you even normal summon. And just like to give you can go into a synchro like before you even normal, like, and that's pretty insane. Like you can so I think that they're leaning a lot more into the 10 years now.
There's a discussion to be had around 40 card decks specifically, and whether or not you should just play every good card in your deck at 3 and not worry about but if I don't have XYZ, I lose to XYZ. For example, here, you look at tactics. Well, it outs Dragoon. It can play through problematic disruption, etc. But, would you lose games if you didn't have tactics that you might have won if you just had an extra Vashuda or an extra vessel to get you there? And of course, Aaron won, so I'm not saying he made an incorrect decision. But there's always a discussion around, like a deck like Virtual World, you just max every Virtual World at 3. There's no discussion there. They do so much for the deck that there's no downside to maxing out.
And I think
here, of course, drawing 3 Moye sucks. It's terrible. You don't want to do it. But
I know in testing, I've liked to see like 2 10-year cards in my hand. So I guess like if you maximize, and like they're never really dead. Like even if you have multiples, like if you say have like 2 for shooter and like 1 of the Adhara, like you can still make plays. Like you can still like do your whole combo. Get your Zhizhao, like search your Moyi if that's what you really want to do. Normal the Moyi, and you've got the other worm in hand already there. Like you don't have to do any more searching. It just gives you like the plays more consistently. So I guess that's why people are more like going towards the heavier 10-year package. I like it
about just having discard fodder for this deck.
Long
one feeling a lot less bad with 10-years that add themselves back.
And not to they get and you get them back exactly. Like and Vessel is like a card that, like, sure, it's not like amazing, but it's definitely needed. And like the fact it can search Protoss in game 2 and 3, like, is nuts.
With Emergence.
Emergence. Sorry,
I'm happy. 10 is one of my favorite decks of all time. I always thought it had high potential because its card quality is really good. Like all of again, like Virtual World, all the 10 monsters do the same thing. They special for free and then they do something in grave. And opting to cut all of the other 10-years that don't just kind of natively plus you is most likely the meta call, but there is a deck in our rundown here that didn't do that, and I'm very excited to talk about it because I think it has maybe some more indication as to what Sword Soul might grow into in maybe a future format. Yeah. All right, moving on to the thing that we commentated in Dunedin.
We were here. Thank you to Dice. We were here in spirit.
In spirit, we can't leave Auckland.
Leave Auckland. So we were given the opportunity to commentate over the Dice Jar Games OTS Championship. I think this was a 13-player event, which is, I think, a really good showing from Dunedin. But just being able to attend and do things.
I should say, even at 13 players, this was probably like the most competitive Dunedin event we've commentated. We never missed a match of high-level performing decks, like really, really strong decks. So it was cool to watch.
So it was super interesting to see. So we've got here, first of all, we have top 4 was Mike Arnigo. This is Team Hoonhei. And he was piloting Magiki. Now, as we know, Magiki received a lot of good support in Burst of Destiny. Essentially kind of the second half of the deck, I would say. And this is a deck that I think we discussed on stream. So if you wanted to see that, you can head to, I believe, Dice Jar Games YouTube channel.
Yep.
This is kind of the deck that uses Auroradon the best.
I'd say so, yeah.
And what this deck has now, because of Burst of Destiny, is the Greater Magici's Maftiel, which is the effect monster that can be revealed to give you an additional normal summon. And on normal, it can special summon a Magiki monster from grave.
A normal monster.
Any normal monster,
actually.
But it just can't be used as materials for anything except for Magiki things. And the introduction of their new Synchro monster, which searches the Omni Negate counter trap, partnered with the Synchro monster having the ability to just destroy monsters with the same attribute as your ones in grave. gives this deck really good resilience even after an Nibiru, because obviously their first line of play here is utilizing Auroradon and the combos that this deck can enable. Obviously things like Beto Buster, being a tuner ritual monster that gives you your Halka Fibrax plays quite often before you even have to commit a lot of material to the board.
Yeah, this deck really reminded me of Prime Infernoble, mainly because Infernoble was like the best Auroradon deck of its format, because it could commit a Borreload Savage Dragon before committing to its actual line, and therefore if your opponent had a Nibiru, they're like, well, I've got to use it now because otherwise you have a Borreload Savage Dragon, and then you were just free to combo off. This deck doesn't have that, but it has a couple of things going for it. First of all, gotta shout out the field spell. Gotta be one of my favorite genders, the field spell that searches the normal summon. But the field spell can tuck back a card to add Magic-y Maftail, which is a great effect. But it also means if you draw Coltwing, you can put it back, which automatically makes this deck better than Infernoble, in my opinion, because that deck just hard loses to drawing Coltwing. The second reason I think this deck is really good is exactly what Ruben said. The Maftail ability to Reborn from Grave can be done with your regular normal summon, or the additional normal summon, to at least end on a spell trap negate counter trap with a monster that destroys cards when your opponent special summons them. And that's like really strong.
Absolutely.
So we didn't see Mike necessarily pivot to that line. When we watched him play, he just hit the combo, the ground running.
It did very well.
I think the end board was like, he cycled through 2 Herald of the Arclights to do a bunch of searching, and then ended on, Borreload Savage Dragon and Abyss Dweller or the Magic-y rank 4, plus
Transfer Mine with the counter trap set.
Plus the Magic-y guy with the counter trap. So like 5 interrupts effectively. It was good. I mean, it was cool to watch.
I mean, shout out to 40 cards. I'm just going to say that now.
This is a clean list. I mean,
talk about a deck that doesn't want to see its garnets but plays 40 cards. Hello.
Loving that Driver is a combo piece. Always love to see that.
One thing that I will make a comment on, like, because you guys have obviously talked about how it may be like a bit weak to Nibiru, is like he is made in the Crossout Designator, and I do wonder if he could have maybe made one of the Nibiru just to like get around that just in case. But I suppose
maybe
like
he's just playing into the meta, like not
game 2 and 3
as often.
Yeah, and I also just speaking with Greg and reading the comments while we were commentating, his only loss was to Fluonda.
Yep. Robotic Knight in the main as well. Pretty cool.
Yeah.
So Magic-y need different attributes in Grave.
Yes.
To use their effects. So you can play a slew of just random normal monsters to get off to the races.
Level 4 normal is really all you need to concern yourself with. So
but negating fire means no Ash, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. So moving on, we have the other top 4 player. This is a pure Tenyi list. This is
cool. Pure quote unquote. The 6 Sword Soul cards.
More Tenyi.
We're gonna call this budget Sword Soul, I guess, because there's no Moyes, there's no Incredible Ecclesias, and there's no Baron. But this deck looked clean.
And honestly,
all day.
Do you need them? That's the thing. Like this deck has such an incredible in archetype engine that, as we were talking about on the stream, Sword Soul just added to. Like there's no confliction, there's no like interruption. As we've seen with the Sword Soul Tenyi version, giving yourself normal or non-effect monsters is exactly what you want.
Yep.
So why not?
Never had a normal summon.
No.
And what Taya and Longwan do is they added a normal summon, which gives you an incredible payoff. And I mean, Chen Ying was insane all day as well. Seeing a lot less play in Sword Soul just because Baron negates Nibiru, yada yada, has its utility. But my God, Chen Ying just put in work. That card is a house.
Yes.
Yep. No, I actually think overall as a card, it is low-key better than Baron. Like if you have the rest of your boards established to like make it work. But like the fact that in the pure version of Tenyi, like you're going to be banishing from your grave all the freaking time. So like that card's live all the time, and that's so cool.
The only match we saw this deck drop was in top 4, and it was against
a second place list with
Pendulum Magicians, and he had a controlling game state, and he had a Chen Ying, a Protoss that just kept calling dark, which was funny,
and then a monk, so a non-effect monster,
and he just literally had it. He had to just draw a Tenyi, and he faded 2 draw steps. Meaning that Pendulum Magician did end up managing to beat him and take that one. But it was obviously like he was in the commanding position, just based off of how strong these cards were. Notable things that came up. I mean, Mare is absolutely insane. We saw him play against Sky Striker and land a Sahasrara, which effectively ended the game because you can't target effect monsters on the field.
And what Sky Striker spells need to target effect monsters? Widow Anchor.
Counter Trap was crazy all day as well. He was on Heavenly Dragon Cycle, which is an interesting card. It's tribute a worm, add a worm from deck to hand. And if you tributed a non-effect monster, you can just special it instead. And then its Grave Effect lets you banish it to search a Tenyi spell trap. So it can search the counter trap or the field spell. You just can't use both effects in the same turn.
And this was very impressive because this was the bubble match that we saw. His opponent was on the Dolce and he was on the Tenyi play. He was on the play, and his opponent allowed him to normal or special summon, I believe a Mapura. And then as his opponent went to activate Dimension Shifter to obviously lock out the grave, you can quick play activate the Heavenly Dragon Cycle, which then put a worm in grave. So it meant that his Tyre, which you can search off of this card, was live for the normal summon to create a non-effect monster.
It was really clean. Like this card,
that's really cool. Yeah,
I kind of said like should probably be played in some Sword Soul builds. Like it literally is just generic worm support. He was on 3 Reborn spell. He said it was bad. He's like, I drew it too much. He actually isn't playing that many Sword Souls, so unless you actually control a synchro, it doesn't do anything. It kind of lost him a game. I think again that game he just faded top decks. It was because he kept drawing the Sword Soul Sacred Summit and not Tenyi names. So maybe some more Tenyi names or consistency cards.
But this was super cool to watch, and I think it was probably the most unique stick of the format.
This was the deck he lost to, and this deck looked awesome all day. It only lost, I think, in the finals.
They both lost to Fluanda twice.
Yeah, this deck lost to Fluanda. Big surprise, Fluanda taking another tournament. But this was awesome. This was, again, like some old school pendulum good stuff. You know, Double Iris, Wisdom Eye, Harmonizing Magician, Penned Call, which we got several rulings wrong on during the commentary. We didn't realize it was only Magician pendulums that were protected. Yeah, Time Pendulum Graph plus a rank 4 plus some negates.
Yeah.
What can go wrong?
And I think we've seen Jamie Meason like in Dunedin. He's been playing this deck for like years and years and years. Like he definitely knows the plays of the deck. He knows how the interactions work. And just shout out for Jamie for like carrying on with pendulums during like, you know, every format, I suppose.
I got to agree.
Yeah.
It was so amazing to watch. I mean, I respect the main deck Ash and a deck that really is all combo. Like truly you want to be seeing it, but I love the inclusion of Perform Power Pendulum Sorcerer like that, because I think we even saw it, like he hadn't used his normal summon and just used Pendulum Sorcerer to search the Skullcrobat Joker, which is amazing.
Even popped a Double Iris on field after using Penned Call, which wasn't protected, and I was like, oh, that's really sick.
Yeah.
Because you wouldn't be able to pop it in scale.
Yeah. It was amazing. This was a deck that looked so incredibly piloted, and I think, you know, the strengths of this are really the Time Pendulum Graph, the suite of extra deck monsters that you can access, and obviously the multiple, Selene activations.
Interesting. We commented during the event, oh, he's going to go into Absolute into Vortex, and someone said, oh, maybe he's not on it because of Room, but he is on it. He was on Absolute into Vortex. He just made Appaloosa at some point when we thought he was going to do something else, but far be it from me to question him. He piloted this deck immensely well.
And I think it's like testament to a player that like knows his cards and knows like the interactions of his cards. And it's a key thing. Like obviously the key to Yu-Gi-Oh! Is learning your own deck, learning all the interactions inside and out. And like that's something that Jamie's always done. And like you just got to credit him for it. So yeah.
I think one of my favorite things I saw him do was he went into Ignista Prominence when his opponent had Chen Ying. This was the game that our other Tenyi player just kept fading draws. And he opted to shuffle the Chen Ying back into the deck before destroying the rest of the field. And that meant that the Sacred Summit that the Tenyi player drew was turned off because only Chen Ying was shuffled in. That means he didn't have a Sword Soul monster in grave. There's like little things like that really came up. Just paying attention to what your opponent is doing, I thought was really impressive.
And then, so the winner, this was, you'll probably be aware of this particular player. Unfortunately, we don't know, but we never saw him, unfortunately.
Yeah,
the finals was off the stream.
He didn't want to stream, so.
And that's totally understandable. So this was another Fluanderese pilot. I think this is quite unique to the James's list that
I'm already
we saw.
Looking Solemn Warning.
Yep, the use of warning. We've actually seen this popping up a bit more because of it stopping Fusion Destiny without paying half your life points. I think is the biggest kind of include for this. We obviously see Prosperity here. We do see, I think, main deck Ash. We've got the Nibiru's as well. The Impermanences. There's some really interesting tech here, and I think the most interesting is the 3 first cards in the side deck, a little Ghost Reaper and Winter Cherries.
Yeah. It's been there for a while. Yeah.
It's been a while, yeah. It's
last time I saw it was 2016, personally, but I know that I missed the format where it did come back again. But
you did miss Goki, where it was absolutely mandatory.
I think Guru has played it occasionally, just because they, again, do not need their extra deck at all. And this is very much a deck in that same breadth, right? Like you never make a card from the extra deck. So Ghost Reaper effectively loses its cost of having to like run bad cards in your extra deck.
Yes.
Yeah.
I like it.
It's good. It's definitely like really good against decks that require like a free Ob Engine card in the extra deck, and you just remove it completely. I remember like its most notable use in history would have been against Dante in Burn List.
Absolutely.
And then all they had left was like a rank 3 toolbox and nothing else to go with.
I can comment. It's amusing that I think Dino and I have been saying, you'll end up with a Baron in your extra deck for a Reaper and Winter Cherries, and you'll reveal it, and your opponent goes, "I don't have $300 to have a Baron." Yeah. It will be funny, but they aren't playing that. They're just playing a lot of like intermediary engine cards.
Good extra cards, yeah.
Kagari, Sunlight Wolf, Access Code, Shurei,
Crystal Wing.
The Crystal Wing.
Just a few things that would be annoying.
Zeus. There's so much that's unique in here. I mean,
I'm
impressed.
Make Zeus in Flawanda.
Yeah.
Actually, you can make Zeus with the Luralist card, which I'm seeing there on multiples of. So,
but this is interesting.
Double purpose, yeah.
Yeah, this is a very good deck. I think obviously the side deck's Dimensional Fissure, just more hatred.
Big fan of Dimensional Fissure. Such a big fan of that card, especially because it turns off things like Droll and Effect Veiler when you're going first. Just seems really good, especially in this deck.
Huge fan. Well, so this is our recap of the events. And I guess this will segue quite nicely into our next section, which is kind of where we're going to be seeing, like, what are our thoughts on this kind of meta going forward? These were obviously quite diverse tournaments, and quite a diverse number of decks made it to the top card. So I guess what are our thoughts on, going forward? What are we thinking is like the most effective, decks going forward? And would you say that a lot of these decks that succeeded were affordable?
So partly, like the decks that are affordable would be the Flawanda decks, like minus the prosperity. So like you can play it with the extrav.
Yeah,
and,
quote affordable.
Yeah, so like that's the only card, but like you can definitely play a variant of it at a competitive level without your prosperities. Yes, it's probably a better card than your extrav because you get to dig for your Rabina and other cards. Like it's one of those decks where it's super important to get to that any small bird really, apart from maybe. Yeah, exactly. So like, and even then, like if you had the field spell with a small bird, you're fine. But like, Sword Soul obviously I think is the top deck of the format. Is it affordable?
No.
Nah.
The Tenyi build looked good. I wouldn't actually ever say the Tenyi build looked subpar.
No, and that's a very, very good budget option. Like I think that if you don't have the money and you don't want to buy a Baron, you don't want to like buy the Ecclesias and Moyes, go for it. Like that would be a good deck in New Zealand for sure. Like in these smaller events, like you'll definitely see some competitive success with it.
It also benefits. Obviously, people play Baron because of Nibiru. Yeah, you can kind of like bait out your even if it's your 5th summon. After the Nibiru, you can still maybe land a Shaman of the Tenyi and Reborn and have interruption. So the whole point of playing it is that your opponent doesn't just wait till the end of your turn to Nibiru. But the advantage of Tenyi is that they can make the full board, and then if you Nibiru them, it gives them a non-effect monster. They're going to like continue to pop off, right?
Yeah.
So I can see in a way that the pure Tenyi version is more resilient to Nibiru. You can leverage a card like Chenying, which I think is better than Baron by a long margin. Non-targeting double banish with Thunder Dragon Colossus protection, which, like Tidra, like you benefit from the banishes, is just crazy. We were talking about how like blackout target Chenying is a +3 in card advantage, effectively. You pop 2 cards and banish 1 from field. You get 1 out of the grave too, and you don't lose the Chenying because it's protected. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, for sure. So like that definitely is a good budget build.
I think Magic-y looked pretty budget. That deck is not expensive.
It's not that expensive. Like, I mean,
none of those pieces are expensive. Yeah,
you could argue Halka Fibrax is kind of expensive, but I mean, it's $40. Like, $30, around that. It's not out of your reach as a budget player. It's also a cool little like combo kind of base deck that puts up negates. Shout out to Pendulums as well. Still, they're still showing in New Zealand. Like that
could literally be like a $10 deck as well.
That's very budget too. Yeah,
very budget.
Those cards got back in the day, Pevo and all that.
One that I'll let you guys talk about a little bit was the Salamangreat build with Small World.
Oh yeah. Talk about budget decks. Salamangreat showed up and really showed out. I don't think he made top cut, but he was close. We saw him several times on stream. And he was one of the only players we saw that was utilizing Small World today, or on the event day.
So this is obviously Small World's quite confusing. I don't feel like we need to break down the ramifications of it. But if you are a competent player and can understand how cards link to each other using this card, it basically does search for anything you need. It's
like unlocking the matrix. Like once you realize what you can search off of it, the card looks a lot better. And do you want to tell them about some of the interesting reasons he played it were?
Obviously, speaking to him, there was the discussion of getting Gazelle is a really strong one. He said if you don't open like any other Cyburst monster in hand, you would reveal kind of another one of your attributes. I think we saw like Debug and Ibly were his options.
He was playing Nightmare Corruptor Ibly as his intermediary card. Small World, in basic terms, needs an intermediary card that only shares one thing in common with both the thing you initially reveal and the thing you want.
Yeah.
And Ibly is a Cyburst level 1 non-fire with 0 attack and 0 defense. So it acts as a perfect bridge between every salad.
So he used it to, using Nightmare Corruptor Ibly to find your Gazelle was a big one. I think you probably could have used it for honestly any other Cyburst.
I think any Salamangreat is searchable.
Yeah. And then the most notable one we saw, which was on stream, he used Small World and revealed a Salamangreat Spinny, revealed an Ibly from deck and searched Pancratops. Because Pancratops and Ibly both have 0 defense and share no other kind of attributes together.
It was really hot. He didn't end up winning that game, but he won it in spirit for just how swag. And he's like, I only worked this out last night. People are still realizing what that card can search. And it's spiked recently.
Yeah. So definitely another burst of Destiny secret to keep your eye on. We've discussed Lord of the Heavenly Prison. Small World is really another one of those too. There are some, we know there's some really good cards in this set. But I feel like these are these more intermediary ones that are not exactly being well known and comprehended, but it'll only be a matter of time.
Yeah. And speaking of format staples, one thing we wanted to touch on, I think, a few weeks ago was Crossout Designator is under $50 here now.
Yeah, it's
crazy.
Nuts.
Which is interesting because it actually saw a lot of success, these events. Many of the decks were playing it.
And I'm upset because I bought my set like a couple of weeks ago for $80 each, but we won't go. But
I paid $150.
And shout out to Liam Gill as well. $750 set.
Yeah, let's go, Liam.
Yeah, let's go. So no,
we're all caught up in the hype. We can't really, we bought a case of 10s, we pulled 3, which is actually turned out to be pretty decent. But yeah, we paid $150 a card because I don't like being in the camp who miss out. And I mean, you can't blame us. Look at Baron. We paid $120 a card for that.
Yeah.
And now it's $300.
Yeah,
or whatever it is. I don't know.
Crossout, and I think we've spoken about this before, it will thrive in the right format.
Yeah.
And arguably, people do kind of overlook it a little bit at the moment still, I believe. Because everyone just associates that card with hand traps. And it can do other things. We see Forbidden Droplet in the format. We see even cards like Chalice in the format. You can hit a Chalice, Dark Ruler. You can hit all these other cards that everyone's using right now, and that's massive. If they don't send a spell off of their Droplet, they just open themselves up to being Crossout. And then they just go, what? If you send, say, 2 monsters to get rid of the board, and then you cross out them, they've just literally just put 3 cards in their graveyard for nothing.
Nothing.
Yeah. So it still has its use.
And we've seen its application in mirror matches. This is one thing I feel like people are just yet to experience. Crossout Designator in a mirror time walks your opponent because you know exactly what they do. You know exactly their strategy. You know exactly what they need to resolve.
Yeah.
And if you just hit the crossout on the right card, sure, you've banished something from your deck. That's fine. You've just stopped your opponent's turn.
Yeah. It's honestly hurting just because the format's so diverse.
It's just so mid-range. Yeah. That's kind of where we've kind of settled in this format going forward.
Well, also, it's diverse, right?
Absolutely.
Crossout in the mirror is insane, but you might play Sword Soul, like you said, at one of these events. You're the only one there playing it.
Yeah.
Because there's so many other choices. And it kind of lends itself well, as you said, to the Fluanda players, because there was a lot of them. It's an affordable deck. But if you can't make that meta call, you might show up with a bunch of stuff that is useless against all the things people are playing. I mean, we've seen as well pro players flip-flopping between hand traps are dead, they're terrible, to playing
all of a
decks
sudden
full of hand traps, right? Like Pac did the exact thing, talking crap about hand traps on his stream and then playing a deck full of hand traps and DPE and Sword Soul. So it's hard to tell what's going into an event going to be good to hit. Whereas
that's so tough.
I gave the example, like during Goki hand loop format, you would just play 3 Crossout and every hand trap in the format and play 50 card Goki Extra Link, because why not? Like,
and
that was a format where no one cared about what they were playing. They just said, if I resolve this combo, I win, and everything to stop that, I'll play.
I think we're going to see as well, like, this is going to be very much like a seesaw format with hand traps to board breakers. Like, because it does do that. Like, if everyone plays hand traps, then everyone's like, oh, I don't want to use them anymore. I'm going to use board breakers. And then everyone goes to that. And then they go, oh, wait a second, hand traps could actually be used now because no one's on them. And then it goes back to hand traps again, So
it comes from the fact that if you get Dark Rulered, you're happy you have Ash Veiler in hand, right?
Yeah, exactly.
If you get Ash Veilered, you're upset you have Dark Ruler and not an extender. Or it's kind of one of those catch-22s where if all anyone doing is playing Dark Ruler, having a hand trap plays around that, which makes Dark Ruler worse. And then everyone starts playing hand traps, which makes Dark Ruler better because you can just Dark Rule them, and it's interesting. Hard to like get a grasp on it.
Yeah,
it's so tough.
It's such a cool, diverse time for Yu-Gi-Oh right now, though. Like, and I think that's something we have to acknowledge.
The God format.
Yeah, I think this will be one that hopefully we remember as fondly. Hopefully,
I think I would have a God format. I think personally, it's
good
healthy and approachable and accessible. I think that's where this format to me is thriving, and potentially those are factors of it being called a God format.
Well, God format, quote unquote, it is a TCG thing. It's an established term that means when there are more than 10 decks that are like, or more than like a select number of decks that are meta viable.
Okay.
They have been known in the past as like God formats, where there are, like we've seen, 20 different decks performing at an event, just because it's considered to be a good thing.
I think I sent you guys a list earlier in the week as well, and we both all went through it. Like, it was a huge list of just competitively viable decks. And
like you put Necros in there, I'm not sure about that one.
I know that was one that I tacked on at the end as like a potentially, you could maybe make some. What I would say is a competitively,
the list is so long.
Yeah,
why not? Yeah,
exactly. Like what I'm meaning by
let's be real.
By a competitively viable deck, though, is like what I mean by that is like it doesn't necessarily mean it's tiered, doesn't mean it's like a top rogue deck or anything, but like something you can like show up to an event and at least take games off people, like, and there's just so many of those decks out there right now. Like the list is huge. Like I would say upwards of 25 plus decks right now.
Absolutely. So I guess all this diversity, do we need a big hit? Do we have, there's been preface of like January nukes. Do we think that we're going to see a larger hit going forward? I don't know.
I could see a trimming of the hedge.
What I want to see, because there's one thing that we know that's coming out soon, which is the Brave Token engine.
It's been confirmed to be known as Adventurer tokens.
Okay, there you go. Adventurer tokens. Right. So we have a possibility of Phantom Knight just becoming the best deck by quite a margin.
I agree. Yeah.
And that is the deck for me that hopefully if Konami like play it right, they could give it a bit of a tickle up so like it doesn't just make that deck unbeatable and like balance, keeps the format kind of in a balanced space.
We should say for reference, I think it's 40% rep right now in the OCG.
Up like 40% consistently, for the last 3-4 weeks.
And that sounds like minimal, but the next highest pie chunk is like 9%. The deck, the format's really diverse, except for this one deck that is really dominant.
Yeah, and speaking to players in OCG, what they're expecting, obviously our ban lists are quite different, but what they're asking for is a hit to engines, because we're seeing a lot of Destroyer Phoenix Enforcer in the OCG, as well as a lot of Adventurer tokens in the OCG. It's everywhere. It's basically a Venn diagram of what does your deck play.
Yeah.
And I think 20% of decks played both.
Yeah. What worries me even more is OCG have Maxi, and it's still showing 40%. You know, like, and we don't have Maxi, and we don't have like a lot of counters to like multiple special summons apart from Nibiru. But like the Bray token engine just deals with Nibiru, so like you literally don't have anything.
What it is that Phantom Knight is currently the best combo deck of the format, and it has its weaknesses, right? And all this does is just reduce its weaknesses, because Drytron can't play adventure tokens because of their restriction, and all the other combo decks of the format are relatively lower power. Like, I love Virtual World, but Crystal Wing Shen Pass is nowhere near as good as Dragoon, Fogblade, Bardiche, rank 4, Utopic Draco, Future Pass. Like, those are just different kinds of boards. And the advantage that Virtual World has versus Phantom Knights is that it's quite good at going second, and it doesn't lose to a lot of hand traps. So this introduction of adventure token, whatever it ends up being called, overall, is going to be something. So whether or not we need to nuke Phantom Knight or just do a kind of trimming of the herd, maybe hit a couple of decks as well that are going to abuse this card. I can't imagine we get 3 E-Telly, Jesus Christ.
I can.
But like, if we get 3 E-Telly, that's just a Phantom Knight buff. So that's the weirdness, right?
Yeah, it's a tough one, because that set does introduce a lot for, obviously, the adventurer tokens really being, like we said in our deck building set, the kind of standout in the future. I don't know. I really don't know what they'd hit. I feel like prior to Burst of Destiny, I was pretty adamant on what I think needed to be hit. But now it's so tough. I think I could confidently say that nothing Burst of Destiny onwards will get hit. Absolutely not. And I think that we're more likely to see, like we discussed last week, and on the flip side, is that one of these 2019 decks will go. It's just a matter of which one. I'm unsure.
Yeah. They axed Dragon Link and Dinosaurs last list. So there's a precedent recently for them just kind of trimming the hedge, like I said, and picking up some of the slack of older decks. Yeah. So looking to upcoming support, Battles of Chaos and Adventure tokens coming out, there's a number of decks that we think might pop up, or maybe become more dominant than they currently are. First of all, I'd love to petition, by the way. Can we call every Adventure token deck the deck Adventures, like Phantom Knight Adventures, Virtual World Adventures? It just sounds, because there's a Magic deck called Adventures, and it just sounds nice. It flows off the tongue more than Adventurer token. PK Adventures, that sounds cool as hell. But of course, we have PK Adventures. We have Fluanderies and the Journey Preparations, which is just cracked. From the top of my head, tribute a Fluander, add a Fluanderies card from deck to hand, and you gain 500 life points.
Fluanderies, monster or field spell.
Oh, monster or field spell. Apologies. Yeah. Just the best cards in the deck. It dodges Imperm Veiler. It extends you. It turns every Fluanderies into a starter. I mean, it's just ridiculous. We have the upcoming Albers deck as well.
Yeah, so we're yet to see the rest of that in Japan. That is scheduled for release in a couple of weeks.
But that boosts Despia, in my opinion, to at least tier 2, if not tier 1 status. I mean, the payoff is
finally there.
Astronomical for that deck.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely something to look forward to, that one.
And I think, Battle of Chaos, we've seen, obviously, OCG, a lot of the impact was for Magician's Souls because they still have Spiral. Apart from that, it's mostly a lot of, speaking with OCG players, it's more a matter of what deck can use the engine the best. It's not so much a scenario of this deck finally became successful because it got the support it was missing in Battle of Chaos. It's just so tough. I don't know. I really don't know what'll be it going forward. What'll be active going after Grand Creators, after Battle of Chaos.
I think one card that's coming out in Brothers and Legend that we could talk about slightly would be the new Altergeist card as
Starlight
well.
Dragoon? No, just kidding.
Oh, the Altergeist Query?
Yeah, finally arriving.
2 years.
Yeah.
Too late.
That card is insane. I don't know if it'll boost Altergeist to tier 1, but it definitely helps.
It helps them though. It brings them up probably, because I think we had them sitting around tier 3 on our tier list.
Yeah.
And it probably may boost them to tier 2. But I mean, I think it's a deck that also can use the Lord of Heavenly Prison as well. So
for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, all trap decks are gonna love that card.
Yeah.
Because one of their biggest downsides was when Lightning Storm and Harpy's Feather Duster came into the format, they just inherently got worse.
Yeah, it was they lost a reboot, but there's Lightning Storm now.
And even reboot, you get to set a trap, you don't lose the card. So if they don't OTK you get to blow them out the following turn.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Brothers has some interesting cards for Lyrilisk and I guess technically Tri-Brigade by extension as well. So those could also just be continually good.
Yeah.
Lyrilisk getting a Dark Ruler no more that's searchable and effectively a Pot of Greed, it's pretty good.
Yeah.
I think
yeah,
it won't change all that much going forward, but like I definitely think when we get closer to the time of January, we'll be able to do our Painful Choice podcast, and I'm really looking forward to this one because like
it's me too.
That's soon.
It's kind of our first ban list after COVID starting to like I'm not saying die off, but like after physical events have started to come back, this is our first big ban list.
The ban list is going to come out like right before YCS or right after YCS. So they might aim to do a lot to make that YCS like, they don't want to just see it dominated by Invoked, for example, or some kind of generic Phantom Knight deck that we've all seen. They want you to get excited about new products. So quickly, call for the best deck next format. Given the current ban list, what do you see? Does the Floowandereeze spell card push it above Phantom Knights here, or do you think they're going to be?
I think no.
Sword Soul's still the best deck?
I think it'll be very much like a trio of decks with Phantom Knight edging it out over the other two. So like it'll be a Floowandereeze, Sword Soul, and Phantom Knight kind of format.
I could see it,
Yeah. I just think with like cards like Shifter and stuff, like older decks can like, as you say, like VW have a bit of a struggle against that card. Shadow and all those sorts of decks have problems against Floowander because they rely on special summoning. Like there's so many decks that like were really good last format, but like just can struggle against these like going forward. And if they're going to get stronger, like it just pushes the other ones back. I suppose the other deck we could throw in there as well would be the Tri-Brigade Lyrilisk as well. Like
that deck's pretty good.
I feel like that's pretty much like that's a good kind of like summation of what is going to be relevant going forward.
I was going to say that deck can also make a lot of use out of Brave Token, Adventurer Token, because sure, they can't use their normal Tri-Brigades, but those are really good at turning into a Ferrojeet, which can then just give you effectively the same thing.
A special summoned. And
the Lyrilisks just do not care about normal summoning. I've never normal summoned in that deck. All right. So moving on to the flip side. If you want to get in touch with us, you can contact us at thefaceDowns@gmail.com. That is
thefaceDowns@gmail.com. Leave a comment on this video if you're watching it on YouTube, or do feel free to email us at thefaceDowns@gmail.com for queries, questions, and concerns.
Yeah, leave a like, subscribe, and all of that, please. I'm begging you.
Yes.
To subscribe.
So you've got a couple of questions, you said, Lucas?
I do.
Okay.
First one comes in from Ross Hitchens.
All right, our top 4 PK player.
More of a comment than a question, but that's fine. We take everything. And it reads, "Hi, Ross here. I really enjoyed episode 37. I appreciate the mention to Dino's question, I assume because we brought up Ross. However, I scrubbed YCS day 1. Ask Dino about it. Funny story. Come on the pod, tell it. I technically top 32 to 200 person mega regional, but I wouldn't call it a success. Also, could you do a cast on preparing for an event? Buddy, we did.
We have.
Episode 35, we did one of those.
And you know what? That was super fun.
It was a good one. I liked it.
Yeah, it was a really nice one, and I'm, super thankful for their events. God, remember YCS, remember regionals? I can't wait for those to return, and those will be returning within the new year.
I can't wait to scrub out of a YCS, dude. I'm so ready.
Oh man,
I'm already
really happy seeing physical events coming back again around this area, because I mean, there's been already I've had like 2 of my old like kind of testing group and like playmates like come back into the game, and they're like, hey, what's the best
cards?
They're like, hey, what's the best deck right now? I want to buy it. Like, and I'm like so hyped.
You got to go around.
Coming back.
Aaron Dennis, the guy who topped Bay Dragon, was very much in the camp of like, tell me when regionals are back, and I'm back in. Like, money's not an option. I'll buy whatever deck's good, but like, just I don't care until we can play regionals again, and they're back. So cool.
They are back, and we're seeing the huge demand for events in America. Las Vegas selling out on pre-registration, Pasadena selling out on registration. They're back, so get ready.
I can't wait to scrub out. All right, next question comes in from Marshall.
All right.
Back again for more punishment, I see. And it reads, "Hello again. Got a burning hot question for you. With the North Island Championship right around the corner, who are your picks for who'll make Top Cut? And who will you pick for the winner? And why is it Ross Hitchens? Seriously, why?" Ross, if you want to get in touch and tell us why you are. Anyway, P.S. It's a quickfire question. Should Zeus get banned at some point? Yes or no?
No.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, cool. 2 versus 1.
I think it completely limits the toolbox accessibility of Xyz monsters going forward because they just won't be as good as Zeus.
They reprinted down it, so they're not banning it.
I mean, not yet.
Not yet.
I
not
think
yet.
one day they'll be like, hey, we're printing a new Xyz-based archetype and we're banning Zeus because it's the new Zodiac.
Zeus
we don't want this deck to just be Zeus Turbo again. I could see it.
Like
how they ban Tidra Colossus around the time Nemesis Corridor got announced.
No, but that was ridiculous. That's absolutely not the correlation in the slightest. Thunder Dragon was absolutely tier 1. The OCG still have access to that package today and don't play it. They just play Colossus.
They can ban cards that aren't seen as a massive problem because of some further support coming down the line. I mean, it happens sometimes, so I don't know. I could see it.
I think it's going.
It's just too toxic for the game. Having a 4 material Zeus is just horrible.
Counter question: what's more toxic, Zeus or mine?
Mine.
But both could go.
Zeus outs mine, so
True.
There is that. All right, and picks for who you think is going to top. I mean, this is more of a local question. I mean, most of our listeners are local, but for Americans out there, hello. We live in New Zealand, so you just won't know any of these people.
I think we'll see Aaron Dennis do well.
Probably.
I think Dino has been playing a lot. Connor has been playing a lot. I'll put you up there as well, Lucas and Ruben. Both of you.
Ruben's judging.
I'm judging.
You're judging?
Okay. There's been some shenanigans.
There have been some tomfoolery, and giggery.
I think what we'll see is the players that have dedicated themselves over this remote duel period and COVID period to the game will do well. The ones that are playing constantly and know the format, they're the ones that do well. I think even James Kmet from Wellington, he did well. Good. He played well throughout all the hobby leagues online through the shuffle ones that we saw over lockdown.
The real question is, will Naibo pick up a deck the night before in top 8?
No, he'll play virtual like he always has.
God damn it. Naibo is just renowned for doing that, though. He's got to do it.
It's always there, right? It's always the chance.
There's some Dragoonity spice. He's working on it in the back door. He's going to bring it out for the day.
I think, a lot of these players that we're seeing, profiles pop up on our Facebook all the time on the page. You're going to see these guys doing
some familiar faces. Yeah,
it's going to be familiar players.
I enough.
Yeah, I mean,
I've had
obviously
a few of those myself, I must say. As has Ruben. If he was in fact playing, I would put him up there in the realm of good duelists.
Quickly, what do you think of this? Winner of the South Island champs should have a duel against the winner of the North Island champs.
I think that's absolutely what should happen.
Yeah, if that's doable, I would love that.
Yeah, let's do it.
And we should do it with dual discs on top of a mountain. To make it a higher stakes environment.
On the Inter-Islander, yeah.
On the Inter-Islander? Hang on.
Okay, no, I'm just reliving the Battle City arc here.
That's really good.
There was an OC on a boat once. Have you heard about that? The OC that was on the boat?
What in the Battle City?
1v1 the Inter-Islander G.
Now, I don't know if this is 100% true. Apparently, the prize card went overboard, and I need to talk to Kez or someone about it to confirm the story. But I remember that
Underwood win this one.
Yeah, well, it actually happened.
Say goodbye to your prize money.
Any other questions have we got early in there?
That's all the questions we have. Do you have any from your locals, Joe?
I had a few people just asking me general rulings. Oh, one thing I have to say, and I've shouted it out on Facebook already, that Flawanda mirror matches suck the rule. Please stop doing that.
Don't do this, people. It's
just don't normal summon against each other, please.
Well, you said it got to turn 4 after 40 minutes.
Yeah.
Of game 1.
Yeah. And it's
I mean, it makes sense. That's 8 hours. That's 8 turns of normal Yu-Gi-Oh! Because they both get to play during each other's turn.
Yeah, it's just It was just
if you're playing Flawanda, dodge the mirror in standings.
Gentleman's agreement, just draw. Just intentional draw and save yourself trouble.
Just roll the dice. It's just so... I mean, obviously it's a skillful matchup, but the rulings suck.
Who's normal summoning now? My effect just resolved, but you just activated a trigger to normal summon. What does it mean immediately after this effect resolves? Does that go on the chain? Oh my god. Yeah, I can't even imagine.
Yeah, we got called out on stream about rulings too. So you know what? I'm not perfect.
We got most of them right.
It happens.
We did.
It happens.
Don't ever come for me.
And
what did we get wrong really badly? It was Paincool and
It was the Floowandereeze spell. That one's a tough one because OCG rulings are really ridiculous.
We thought the Floowandereeze spell could tribute unaffected monsters like Monarch Stormforth because it isn't an ignition effect that specifically targets and affects a monster on the field, but apparently it does do that
in Japan.
It just doesn't say that on the card for some reason.
But that's one thing I've always done when I've like helped the locals out. Like if I make a wrong call in a hobby league, I'll come back the following week and be like, "Hey, look, man, I'm sorry, I made the wrong call. This is actually what it was, and this is why." And I think that's like something you just kind of have to own up and do. Like it's just part of helping and judging events, I suppose.
I mean, we were on stream helping Greg with chain links.
We definitely called some chats that were fixed on stream. So got to give us some credit for that.
Yeah.
And if you want to check out that stream, again, that's Dice Jar Facebook or YouTube channel. I think it's up.
I think it's Team Dice Jar is on YouTube.
It was a good one. We sounded good. It didn't sound bad like the last one. So check it out if you want to see.
We're increasing.
If you want to see what Mike can do with Magic Key, I actually highly recommend that match. It was I think it was the first match we commentated, and it was really cool. Like just seeing what that deck can do. Dugara's detached 2 Herald of the Arclights, too funny.
It's such a clean setup that Greg's got as well. On that streaming setup is so nice.
Gorgeous. I think what did Brandon Mann say? If you want to see Mike do something with a Magic Key, hit to Stilettos. I don't know. It was something.
No, that's not what he said.
But anyway, so thank you very much. This has been our event recap.
Yeah, meta defining
OTS championships, and we're going to see some more lists today as well after all these events have wrapped up.
I've got to go think of a clickbait title for this one, guys.
Oh, you will.
It's not hard.
You won't believe what won the ODS championship.
Yeah, exactly. Unbelievable. Tenyi Sword Soul destroyed by Magic Key. I don't know.
Trap tricks are back.
Yeah, trap tricks are back.
That's a good one. Question marks sell. They get clicks.
Mech Knight?
Yeah,
anyway.
DPE trash. New card emerged.
Yeah. All right, we're just brainstorming here. But so thank you very much for everyone for listening. Again, please check us out on YouTube. Please give us a like and subscribe. Leave a comment down below.
Subscribe to the channel.
Follow us and listen to us on all your favorite podcast apps. And I'd like to finally thank up for all the resources that we were able to use today. Those were provided by Your Move TCG. So you can check them out on Facebook as well as their YouTube channel, which is Your Move TCG.
Progenitors of the Penguins beating Eldritch meme. Shout outs to Connor. I don't know what else have they done. Just
a lot.
Bit of a troll that.
And obviously we'd like to thank Greg from Dice Jar Games that was able to allow us to commentate. So if you would like to check out the stream, please head to at YouTube at Team Dice Jar for that, or Dice Jar Games for the live stream replay.
And thanks, Joe, for hosting an event in Palmy. I mean, on behalf of the players, I imagine they were stoked.
Yeah, and giving us the scoop.
Thanks for the scoop, baby.
It was a good time.
Yeah, and as always, thank you very much for listening to The Face Down. I'm Ruben.
I'm Lucas.
And I'm Joe.
And you've been listening to The Face Downs.